So we asked the people who were married less than 15 years to ask questions to the other group, and you guys give them advices or answering their questions. We also asked them to write requests that they wish to submit to you. We asked that group to write advices for them. So we didn't finish all the questions. We're going to go through them this time, and we're going to try to finish them as much as we can today. At the end of the day, if we finish them or not, we're going to provide you with 2 QR codes to each group to submit more questions. If you feel like there is something or advices that we did not cover, we can still submit them, and we can address them later, either like separate meetings, or we're going to prepare the answer for those questions, and Abuna can share that with the congregation. But that's going to be at the end of the meeting. Ready to start? Ready. Wow, so great spirit, okay? So we're going to start with someone. We left. Say it again?
I said we all got in fights when we left.
Okay, hopefully this time we're gonna reconcile that fight. They're gonna pick question and then say out loud and then pass it to the next person.
How to fix your marriage in a very challenging time when you feel you are done or cannot keep going? You got the question? Did you hear me? Yes or no? Yes? Okay. Probably it's a hard one. How to fix your marriage in a very challenging time when you feel you are done or cannot keep going? Run away.
What about you?
I'm silent, guys.
That's a question for y'all.
It's like, next question.
We don't have an answer for that. Can you give me one?
How about a vacation?
From each
Just-
other?
No. I think just going on a trip, leave all the cares of the regular everyday life and who's going to do this chore and that chore, and just go have some fun, have somebody else cook and clean, have somebody else make the beds. It's just, how about a vacation? As long as you need.
As long as you can.
It's actually it's a very tough question. أنا هقولها بالعربي. امسكي في ربنا. I don't know how to say it in English. Stick to God, or really rely on God, but also have a trusted person. In our case, in my case, when I had that tough time, is to have a Buna. So have somebody spiritual that can really bring reason and guide you spiritually on what is the right thing to do and how you need to handle it, to give you some guidance, right? So if you don't have, sometimes the parents will not be around, or maybe they are not wise enough to give you the right guidance. So hold onto God, trust Him, and have somebody spiritually that can guide you through this tough time.
She wants to answer. She's asking.
And in addition to that, I think that spiritually, of course, but sometimes we get into ruts because of communication issues that we have with one another. And I think that sometimes in those cases, it's good to have like a third party who can advise both of you together and help sort out any miscommunications or ways that we say things to each other that don't land well.
So I think this is a very difficult question that others have alluded to. I like Magdi's idea of get out of the spot you're in right now if you can, If you cannot, which often you cannot because of work, because of family responsibilities, etc., sometimes just acknowledging, I'm a little overwhelmed right now, I'm not on top form, I'm going to step back and I'm not best in my communication right now, and just take a break from you. It's counterintuitive, but sometimes actually taking a break from communicating and saying, let me take a day or two to just settle down and sort of, and then let's retouch base. And sometimes just taking that little break helps you reset. I love Missy's idea. I will tell you my approach, though, is I very rarely engage a third party in my marriage. Very rarely. Sometimes it's necessary, but I very rarely will engage a third party in my marriage, because ultimately things will be sorted out between you and your spouse, but then your private marriage stuff will have gone out of your home to somebody else. So my approach, and it's different personalities, my approach is I do not engage others in anything that involves my marriage. No comment.
Guys, if you are married less than 15 years, come join us in this group. If you're more than 15 years, join the other group. Okay, guys, are you ready? You finished your answers? Okay.
Hold on, I'm just trying to type everything. Just a second.
While he's typing, I'm going to add something. I think whenever you're feeling like you're at that end point of how do I keep going, it's like you are constantly just seeing the things that are bad, the reasons why you feel like you're at the end. But if you stop even acknowledging those reasons and start looking for all the reasons that you want to stay, whether it just be, your faith and your religion or just the good things, it outweighs those bads. Like when you kind of like the same thing, if you focus on finding the bad things, you're going to find things that are bad. But if you really focus on those good things, it seems to help get through that hump.
Thank you, Heather. What I thought is, and I promise you, I'm not saying this because I'm a Buna, just from my own personal experiences. First of all, check your spiritual feeding and your spiritual canon. Are you feeding spiritually or la? If I eat a meal once every few weeks, just enough to survive, and then I have to carry like a heavy load, I'm going to fall out, topple over with it. Same thing, spiritually feeding. If I'm spiritually feeding myself once every few weeks, just enough to survive, whenever there's a heavy load, a problem, issue, spouses being difficult, boss, financial issues, an accident, whatever, I'm going to topple over because my spirit is weak. So that's the first thing. After that, take some quiet time alone, kind of like what Shireen was saying, and ask yourself, what is causing this? With an open mind and heart. Don't just blame the other one. Okay, where did this come from? How did we get there? And then ask yourself, how did I contribute to this problem? Because whether you like to admit it or not, it takes two to fight or to get to that place. Okay, what is my responsibility here? And what can I do on me? How can I contribute in doing things right? Regardless of what the other spouse is doing or not doing, and regardless of what the other spouse deserves or doesn't deserve. When we made those marriage vows, or when we read the charge or whatever, there was no ifs or as long as or until. It was, you do it, period.
How do you get the trust from your spouse that nobody from family or friends influences your every thought? Oh my goodness. How do you get the trust from your spouse that nobody from family or friends influences you every thought is original from you? I think, I mean, I'm just making an assumption because I'm a female. We do that. I think the question is asking, like, how do you get your spouse to trust that whatever thought you're having is original from you and not from maybe family and friends outside influence? That would be the only thing I could maybe think.
Yes. That's the
Great question. Let's answer it.
We just wrote the question.
So we're making our spouse trust that there is no external influence, like in-laws or other family members who are friends, influencing our decisions. And I didn't write the question. I think that's what it means. Is that the way you
Clearly, that's what it means, yeah.
So I guess this kind of conflict need for trust. Trust is not like you command somebody to trust you. It's coming with experience, but for certain situation you may need to ask the question why. Why you think I'm telling you this because somebody else told me this? It is really bothering me that way, and that's why I'm telling you that. This is my actual feeling, not because someone else told me this. But trust in general needs experience. Like we have situations and I have to prove and show myself, show my way of thinking. So maybe this kind of conflicts happen at the very early in marriage because we still didn't know each other very, very well. So we don't know actually how we think, how we take our decisions, this kind of stuff. So it is good idea to explain. No, it will not hurt to explain myself. This is my idea. This actually coming from me, not from anybody else. And maybe ask why you think somebody else told me this.
With all due respect, I think that the question is maybe a little bit faulty, or the question is kind of like, how do I stop coughing? But that's not, that's a symptom. The main issue here is trust, is why doesn't he or she trust what I'm saying? So I think there's something bigger, and this is a part of it. So the question for the asker is like, do I usually say what I mean and mean what I say and follow up what I say and do what I say I'm gonna do, and like, or do I beat around the bush or say things that are not very accurate or exaggerate or whatever? I think that's also the answer, is that to check myself is, do I behave in a way day in, day out, consistently, not just every once in a while, that causes this person to believe what comes out of my mouth?
I know I'm one of the new generations, but I need to add comment on this. So we are the human, most likely when we feel, you know, if you go to your boss in work and you find him just get his boss meeting before he got meeting with you, he start meet you, you will think most of his decisions coming from upper management, because already I saw him talk with someone else. So that means the other partner, wherever spouse, man or girl or woman, the other side just saw this, his partner start talk a lot about the life with others, with strangers. Strangers mean closest people ever, farthest people ever. So at this point, if you talk a lot, talk a lot about your life and the situations that you attached with, at this point your partner will start feeling any decision will come up from my mouth or my brain already get infected from others. Because of this point, most likely when we start talk, first thing our brain starts thinking about what's happened before this decision or before this discussion. I think.
I personally think it's just the way we were obviously raised to respect our mother and father's like opinions, and I think it's to say like not everything gets obviously shared with amongst new couples. There's stuff that we know like we can keep between us, and there's things that we can share. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to seek a mother and father's opinion, but at the end of the day, as a couple, you make the final decision, and you can take obviously an opinion and bring it on board. It's just you are much younger, you haven't seeked as much and seen as much, so it's I don't see it as necessarily a bad thing seeking advice from elderly, and yeah. But at the end of the day, it's like you make your own decision with your wife, and yeah, that's just my.
Can I just add to that? I do think that if you're going to seek the advice of a third, an older family member, it has to be done with the permission of one's spouse.
100%, totally agree.
And it has to be an agreement that things that are within the house stay within the house, unless there is an explicit understanding that I'm going to share this with
for sure
XYZ in my family because I need their counsel. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, I totally agree. And like I said before, it's some things don't get shared, like I said, but some things that you feel like, yeah, well, you could get an outside perspective, it'd be good. But I agree with you, yeah, counsel with your wife and see if that's okay, and then go from there. It's always a joint decision.
To me, I think that I guess one of the things that I think of is that if I'm asking the advice of somebody, that I'm usually putting myself in the positive and my spouse in the negative. And over time, that person will see my spouse in a negative light all the time. And that colors their image of not just my marriage, but also my husband. And secondly, it's kind of like the thing that bothers me the most is when patients come to me and they have issues and they've gone to Google. I have to, and I think to myself, why would you trust Google? To me, it's the same thing. Why would you trust somebody outside your marriage with something as important as that relationship? So I think that, we always put ourselves as the right and Magdi as the wrong.
Or any spouse.
Or any spouse. I would rarely, I don't know that I would seek somebody's opinion if everything was going great. It's only if things are not going well.
I think the question, I agree 100% with what you're saying, but I think that the question can also involve things like we want to buy a house, and there's a parent who is all about like get your house as soon as possible, but one of the spouses maybe is a little bit less risk-taking, and they want to wait longer. And so they feel like this decision is being pushed from an outside source. So I 100% agree with like what Linda is saying when it comes to interrelational things, but I think that sometimes what comes up is other kinds of decisions where you're not sure where the input is coming from. And I think, which is, in my opinion, the answer to most of these, is to sit down and have an honest conversation and express to your partner your concern. I feel pressured. I feel whatever it is that you're feeling because of the decision without disparaging or belittling the person that you think it's coming from.
How can I be a good Christian wife when I'm married to an Egyptian who is very alpha man? Don't.
Okay, then I see Linda. Can you ask answer that question?
I think if you got married from Egyptian guy and he loves you, he will accept. He already accepted you as you as. So do your best, and that's it. Do your best, make him just like the idea. Not the idea. I mean, I don't know. Do your best.
I would say help him to assimilate.
I disagree with simulate. I go because I disagree with simulate because if you want in your marriage to get win, you have to accept your partner as is. You don't ask to him change. If you ask him to be changed, 100%, your partner will be against you all the time.
But there are some cultural things from Egypt that you cannot, that maybe are not relevant.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because you already, I accept the other partner with his culture or her culture. So why you wanna me her? Why wanna me change because of her, or she wanna me her change because him? If it just don't, we don't flip this.
I should get the mic in that. So when I met Magdi for the first time, he said, we were doing something active, like an exercise, and he said, but you're a girl. And I said, oh my gosh. We're done. So, but you do change. You do change for your partner. If they have wants and needs, or if they have a way that they want to feel loved, you obviously change, because you should change for your partner. You should, so you should have some expectations of your partner, because there's many things that how I expect to be treated, and I will be very, very vocal about this is how I expect to be treated. And
okay,
my partner should also be very vocal as well. The other thing is that if he's going to make a decision, he needs to know whether this is important to me and I need to be involved, and it can't be all him. Or is it important to him and he should take priority? So knowing that is not necessarily an alpha male, not alpha male, but yes, people that come over from Egypt occasionally, not everybody, do have this dictum that it's my right. It's not your right. Nobody has a right to do that. I mean, you're in a relationship where you are both contributing to be one. And it can't be 90% of everything you do is what I want. It's never gonna. The resentment is going to build up so much that in times of harsh or stress, the relationship is gonna separate.
Yeah, this is why I said if your expectation didn't come as you want.
Okay, معلش بشوي, you can't just keep responding to everybody عشان الوقت, because we have a lot of questions to go. We got your point, but I do want to say something because I agree with Bishoy on something. when you are engaged, when you are courting and dating, and you see certain flags that you don't like, you discuss this with your father confession, you discuss this with your parents or with your friends or whatever, and they're like, maybe like, I'm seeing something here, like you sure? And they're like, no, I love him, or I love her, whatever, I don't care. Yeah, don't get married and then come back later and say, no, I can't live with this. You knew what you're getting into, and I think that's what he's talking about. Like, you don't change the person. Having said that, if there are certain things that your spouse does that bother you, hurt your feelings, or offensive or whatever, you talk, you communicate, you bring it up. I mean, we could talk about this actually for a couple of hours, because I'm going to take the word Egyptian out of it, because I don't think that's fair, because some Egyptian men are fantastic. But I would say, like, as an alpha male or chauvinistic or too whatever, a lot of times what leads to this, it's not time for psychoanalysis, but like it's actually a feeling of insecurity or fear of some sort, and then the person becomes over-controlling and they want their way, and like we need to find the root of this. This is not like an easy answer, but we do need to bring up that what 1 Corinthians 7 says and Colossians 7 say, which is like, I'm not saying the other one is an unbeliever, but it's talking about when a believer is married to an unbeliever, that the believer, with their Christian behavior, if they are truly practicing their Christianity, they'll be able to win the other person over. That does not mean you just accept everything and be quiet. No, you do bring it up, but when and how, and in a nice, calm, friendly way. My 2 cents. But yeah, there's certain things that getting into the marriage that it's not fair. You can't come back later and say, no, I don't want this. That's why it's very important to get a lot of counsel premarital. And at the same time, there are things, because we all do things that bother each other, we can definitely bring it up and talk about it.
I think a big thing with the alpha man, alpha personality. It doesn't have to be man or woman. I mean, all of us have that in us, to have that strong personality, to really know like what you won't settle on letting happen. So there could be a million things that I don't like, but there's only 5 that they maybe like really bother me, where I can't live or can't be in a relationship if these things are happening. And those are the ones you need to sit down and have a conversation. Like, it's all about, yes, sitting back and some things sliding, but not everything. Like, this, that push and pull, each of you have to do it. So if like finances is one of those alpha personality things, and you just have to be involved in that conversation because you feel like you have good input, then you've got to sit down and have that conversation to say, hey, I know you feel like you're in charge of this aspect, but I would love to be able to communicate and share opinions on this. But some things, just being a good Christian spouse, again, it's not just a wife, some things you've got to let them slide. You've got to let them dominate in some areas.
So I think that one thing that, as a Christian spouse, that you can do when the other partner maybe is not listening in the moment to what it is that you're saying, and you've communicated, and there's a culture, and I am going to say that there's a cultural difference, because the culture doesn't have to be your nationality. The culture can be your family of origin, right? That the ideas that we come into our relationships with, right, about what is, like, how things are supposed to look and what things are, how it's supposed to be, right, is to go before God and ask Him to get involved. To ask before you fight, because once you fight, like, you've kind of, like, I'm not going to say, yeah, a little bit. But before then, you run to God and you tell Him the situation. I feel dismissed. I feel like my partner is not listening to me. I feel like my opinions don't matter at all. Would you please get involved? And pray that God moves either my heart, because I could be the one who's mistaken, or moves my partner's heart.
Okay, so this one is, what is the most important secret to a peaceful marriage?
Just be the first to apologize. Be the first to just kind of diffuse the situation, whether you're right or wrong. Just be quick to diffuse the situation and calm everything down. And just because, in my opinion, a fight is 2 stages. There's the emotional content and then there's the root cause. So get the emotional content out of the way so you can calmly discover what the root cause is. So just 99% of the time, it's not a showstopper. So just diffuse and discuss at a later time.
The most important secret to a peaceful marriage.
God must be in the middle of the marriage.
And piggybacking a little bit on what Magdi was saying, is hold your accounts short. Do you know what that means? That when something is troubling you, don't let it fester. Talk to your partner about it and reveal to them your thoughts and what's going on, and resolve the issue when it's small. But the way that Magdi is talking about.
I'm sorry. What are your
Okay, one thing I'm gonna say again, not because I'm a woman, but just really believe me, it's like, how is your relationship with God individually? Because if it is, through your confession, through your examining self, through reading the Bible, through asking God to help you, remembering God's commandments, or how to behave, all that stuff, this is how, to me, like, you end up with it. It covers all this stuff. Be the first to apologize, prefer one another, approach humbly, you name it. It covers everything.
What are your expectations of your spouses? May I repeat it? Okay. What are your expectations of your spouse?
What should you expect from your
I
spouse?
think that's what it meant.
That's what it is, man.
Or what's the limit of your expectation from your spouse?
What are reasonable expectations?
Yeah. What's your expectation?
Unreasonable? I don't know how to interpret that. I would say to respect one another, first and foremost. To have respect for one another and just love each other. I think love can change any problem if you let it. Just let love into your heart. I think some people guard their heart and they close it off to not being open to just receiving God's love first, and then God will change your heart, and then that leads the example for the other spouse. Sorry, should I be talking to me?
I think that's exactly the meaning of the question. Like, what's my limit or what's my boundary? What should I expect or not expect from my spouse?
Far be it from me to not always. Expect your spouse to be human. Expect imperfections. Expect that sometimes they won't notice you. Expect that sometimes they'll be too irritable unfairly. Expect that sometimes they will be a jerk. Expect that sometimes they're going to sin. They're going to be weak. saying this because a lot of times, and including myself, is that a lot of times we expect our spouse to be like perfect all the time. We would never say it out loud, but in our head and in our subconscious, we expect this. We hope for it. But yeah, some grace, I guess.
Can I say something, Abuna? I kind of belong to that group, though. In my opinion, what you're not supposed to expect, that your spouse is going to fix all your problems. And he's going to heal all your wounds from the past. I think that not what to expect, what not to expect. That's, I think, also another point. Thank you. Any additional to that question? Okay.
I think one expectation you can have for your spouse is that they continuously fall in love with you, and not the you that they married, but the you that you keep evolving into day after day, hardship after hardship, just year after year of life, because I'm not the same woman I was when we met when I was 19. Like, I went through so much, and I think that it's healthy for me to expect him to fall in love with this new version of me. He met the fun, single version of me. He didn't meet the mom that's stressed out at 8 p.m. because her kids won't go to sleep. But I expect him to love me in that mess, or to love me when I'm sitting and they're praying, or we're eating dinner and doing something just absolutely amazing. It's like a whole new thing, and he should constantly just be loving that.
Another thing not to expect, but this is not from your spouse, from the marriage itself, it's gonna be successful and peaceful and your love gonna grow without any effort. That's a false expectation. Like, you need to understand that you need to work for that. You need to put some effort if you want this marriage to be successful and peaceful and your love to keep growing. More comments?
Asking what is my expectation of my spouse, like ask myself, am I a good spouse? Do I meet the expectations, if we call it this way? Because most of the time we focus on ourselves, what the other, what do we need? Will you fill my needs? Will you meet my expectations? And we never think about, I have a role to do. I have a work to do for my spouse. I have to take care of her. This kind of stuff actually, maybe without thinking, if your spouse meet your expectation or do whatever you expect, they will do it naturally because you are doing your part. So it will be like natural result.
How do you control your anger during an argument with your spouse?
Stay away.
Just take a moment.
Oh, yeah, vacation or something. Vacation. No, not from your spouse. Stop repeating that.
I think everybody is different. So some people will need, like, for example, if a couple is fighting or they are just really at a peak, maybe one of them will like to just be alone, which is okay. Maybe someone else will like to go for a walk. I think we need to know what makes us calm, and I think it's just different. Maybe someone will just go out. Maybe someone will just want to like sit and pray, read the Bible. I think we have so many options. And some of it, or most of it, in my opinion, if we're fighting, sometimes it's good to just, like as Magdi said, just diffuse. And maybe it's not the right time to talk right now. Just diffuse and everybody take some time to calm, and then we can go back and talk.
What was the question? How do you control your anger during an argument with your spouse?
I want to continue what Heba said, which is like to learn what the other partner, what is the way of him to calm and go that way. Like if the other partner is calm when he maybe eats ice cream, then let's do it. And then you can postpone the argument and do it later. If you can't control it, if you can't control the anger and it's going up, then you can stop it, do something fun, continue it later. Yeah, exactly, hungry.
So I fail at this all the time. I'm just putting this out there. But the thing that helps me in controlling my anger is when Abuna reminds me that he loves me. When we're fighting, seriously. Because then I'm not like all, like it helps me remember that we're actually like together still. And it removes me from, he's probably going to roll his eyes when I say this. But, well, I haven't said it yet. I didn't say it yet. It helps to remove me from like being so combative, because it reminds me that like we're on the same side. That's because he has self-control.
So just one thing to the guys, and I've been told this many times, like I would be speaking normally and I would get this, not just from Linda, but from others, like, why are you angry? And I'm like, I swear I'm not angry, but they see something. So I just learned, especially for the guys, just remember the size difference. You're much bigger than your spouse, you're much stronger than your spouse. She knows that too. Just remember your features. You know, women are prettier, so even if they get a little angry, they still look cute. You're not. So when you get angry, you look much worse than you normally do, which is normally not, not all that. So just remember the physical differences, and kind of that will be a reminder to you to just pull back.
I think that all the answers have been fabulous. I wanted to add two things. Number one is I absolutely agree that time, even if it's just a few minutes, is so helpful just to simmer down, etc. However, it's very important not to let things linger so long and fester, and it becomes a Cold War, which can easily happen. So there is a balance, and it's a delicate balance between giving things time, but not letting it fester for a long time. So do close it, do address it, even if it's not in the moment. That's one thing. The second thing that really helps me is reframing and just pausing and thinking, what is it like if I were in his shoes? If I did that to him, would he judge me this harshly? Because we judge people differently than we judge ourselves. So after I've taken a few seconds or minutes to simmer down, I will just reframe in my mind, and that really helps me to infuse some rationality into the situation. Because humans are not rational by nature. I'm not.
So I guess also it is good to know your triggers and her triggers. So you know that you had enough this day, you are ready to start a fight. So you know that triggers you. So be careful. Don't go into any conversation with your spouse at that time, because you know you're already ready for that. And also for your spouse, you know that certain situation make her very nervous. So once you saw this situation, so it's to avoid any kind of argument at that time. So that will avoid anger from happening.
One thing that I learned a long time ago is try to remember or to remind yourself who your real enemy is. Your spouse is never your enemy. You do have an enemy, a very formidable enemy, and who's against you and your spouse, against your marriage, and you two are actually on the same team. Don't look at your spouse as your enemy. Remember who the real enemy is, and then, okay, this is something that we are facing. It will help you calm down, and it will help you look at your spouse as a partner, as a teammate, as opposed to as the opposition.
I think that's what Missy meant when you remind her that you love her. She remember, oh, he's not my enemy. Yeah. We're same team. Yeah.
I think another really important thing is like remembering who your spouse is. Like they're a child of God. They were made in the image of God. Are you willing to lose your anger and your composure on God? If that was God sitting in front of you having a conversation, are you going to act the way that you're acting? And if not, why would you treat your spouse any differently when we were made to be like him?
How to develop lowering your voice when you take family members in the house? Okay, how to develop lowering your voice when you take family members in the house?
I didn't understand that question.
The same almost.
How to
Develop
lowering
your voice
when you take family members in
the house.
Like guests? Like you have guests?
Your kids.
That's exactly what the person wrote. How to develop lowering your voice when you take family member in the house. So I'm not sure if they're talking about themselves or about the people that you're hosting.
So, like being loud when you have guests?
Maybe. I'm not sure. There's no answer for that. Feed them. Yes, put food in their mouth. They can't be loud if there's food in their mouth.
So, you know what it sounds like? It sounds like what we were talking about before, is that different people from their family of origin have different expectations, right? So my family is super loud. And I remember this one time when I was going over to Abuna's place when we were dating, and it was for when everybody was there for Magda and Linda's wedding. And there must have been 20 people in this apartment. And I'm walking up the stairs and I'm thinking, nobody's here. I thought everybody was supposed to be here. And I got up to the top, and there's all 20 of them being all civil with one another. So I'm wondering if the question is because, like, there's that expectation that when guests are there, like, the appropriate thing is to be civilized.
Oh, okay. So how can
Yeah, that's not, I'm not giving you the answer.
If the guests are temporary guests, over a weekend, over a week, whatever, then patience. Just wait till there's no guests. Or, really, whether there's guests or not, wouldn't it be better if you, in general, practice kind of like the question before, controlling the anger and keeping my voice, calm, or calming my heart so that my voice can follow, so that I can reach the goal that we have. But if they're permanent guests, maybe go out for a walk and discuss it in the street. I don't know.
I think part of that might just be praying before your guests come over. I know sometimes I've been in circumstances where I'm going to be around somebody and my spouse isn't with me. Maybe I don't know them quite as well or feel as comfortable. And so, like, sometimes I've just prayed about it and let God help me through it. I think that's a big part of it. It's just kind of giving it to God. Just giving those worries and cares to Him so He can help you through it. Because I think family dynamics can be hard sometimes. So.
I have something else to clarify.
Sorry, I
when
didn't
you are around people that are loud like me, it's something to put in your mind. Some personality, like me again, when I'm excited or happy, I get loud without noticing that. So if I'm with group that I'm really having fun, or we are talking about a nice conversation, I get loud without me noticing that. But if you notice that I'm so quiet and my voice is not there, that means I'm not enjoying my time and I'm trying to find out a way to leave the group that I'm joining. So if you have guests and let's say the question is, my guests are the loud people, maybe they're just enjoying their time. They didn't mean to be loud, and you maybe somehow being nice to calm them, but not to tell them directly that, hey, can you lower your voice? That's gonna really shut them off. And the opposite, if you are the one who's loud and you're feeling that way, ask yourself, maybe you're just excited. So as Abuna said, calm your heart a little bit so you're not gonna be annoying to the people who are visiting. Because I'm being annoying a lot of time. I know that. Any more comments? Yes,
I just have a comment. If guests are going to a family, they should just accept, because being loud is not something bad. This is just how the person is. And as we're saying, like, there are families that this is just them. So if I'm a guest and I'm going to someone's house, I should accept the way they are, or I'm just gonna go to a hotel. This is just the simple thing. I'm not really convinced that I should change because I have someone in my house. Like, of course I'm gonna respect like all that stuff, but I'm not gonna like, I don't think this is something that, of course we're not going to fight while they're there. We can just wait until they leave.
We're going to change our nature. So I'm not going to feel comfortable around people who don't live with me. Why is all the content? This is not my nature.
So I was just a little confused on the question then. So is it that that person just is playfully loud? Or is it that they were having an argument that might have been loud that could cause someone to feel, huh? Yeah. Yeah, oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's what we got confused. We don't know if she's talking about herself or the people who are visiting. So we kind of covered both.
Oh, okay.
I really feel like, since we're talking about relationship, whoever wrote that question talking about us arguing or not agreeing on something, and all of a sudden now I'm loud in front of other people. Yeah. Not just a regular guest.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So
not like,
I don't think that that's acceptable and under no circumstances. But again, we talked about the anger, so I mean, it's the same thing about the anger. Just control that, and whether people there or not, you can't just let it.
How do you handle communication when you are telling your partner what is hurting but you are not understood or told it's nothing? Again? Okay. How do you handle communication when you are telling your partner what is hurting but you are not understood or told it's nothing?
I feel like that's being dismissed almost, like the other person is being dismissed and not really heard. If someone's coming to their partner because they have a concern, because they might see maybe it's not something the partner has communicated or voiced, but maybe they just perhaps, you notice something different, like just in their physical appearance. You can tell when your loved one might seem sad or upset. And I think if you approach it that way, and then they're going to either reassure you, no, I'm good, I'm just like tired or something. But I think if they don't respond to you, then you're going to maybe feel dismissed. And then it can start into like maybe a disagreement. So I think just like, I don't know if I answered that right, but if I understood the question, but I think that's.
I think one thing I would do is I would pick a time when there are no issues or fights or disagreements or whatever, and I would, say, honey, when I talk to you and express myself. No, I'm serious. In a nice, passionate, when I come and talk to you and share something, even if I'm being unreasonable, or even if it's exaggerated, or even if it's because of flaw in me or whatever, I need to be heard. I need to express myself. It doesn't make me feel good when it's minimized or dismissed. In the future, يعني, when this happens, just hear me out, okay? يعني مثلا validate something, do something. Don't just say it's nothing or dismiss it. Not at the moment, like when things are happy.
And I don't know if this is like a generational thing that people in our generation haven't been trained from our families necessarily in how to communicate really our feelings. To go to another person and to say, I feel, like to even identify necessarily our feelings, right? I feel very hurt when this happens. I feel dismissed when this happens. That I think that sometimes, I know that in, not to expose everything, but sometimes when I go to Abuna and say something to him, I'm not expressing it in the, hey honey, I feel really, whatever the feeling is, right? And when this happens, and I would really love for you to do this, which is, I know if I said it that way, because when I have said it that way, the response is totally different. When I have said it that way, I am met with, oh, that's not what I meant. Or, oh, that wasn't the intention, right? But when I come in hot and skip the first part and just go to the second part about like what it is that bothered me, then it's taken like as an accusation. And now he's in a position where he has to defend himself. And then it is possible that his defense, not him, but a person's defense, would be, well, that wasn't anything. That didn't mean anything, because we're not really dealing with the real issue right now. He's just like defending. So I think that maybe the first thing to do is to reflect and see how it is that we're presenting our issue.
I think that comes down to us as men being more clear on how we're delivering something that we're saying, because something that we think that we're expressing may come across to like a lady, like it's not the correct way of saying it, and it's like, no, I did not mean it in that context. I meant it this way. So it's just taking a minute and expressing it in a different manner. I think sometimes as men we don't think how the lady might think of it, and it's just expressing it in the right tone and the right delivery as well.
Can I just add one thing to piggyback on what Abuna said? I think there's a slight difference in the way men and women communicate. Men communicate problems to ask for a solution. Women communicate to be heard. So I think sometimes when we as women bring something that's bothering us to our husband, they may hear it as, you're looking for a solution, right? I don't have a solution. Whereas we may be just looking for, just hear me out. So I think it's a slight difference between the way men and women communicate and sort of leveling those expectations.
But sometimes us as men always, like you said, we're problem solvers.
Right.
Sometimes we are looking for answers. I think that's where the lack of communication sometimes comes in, and I guess that's where both sides can work on.
I think getting the answer is the woman. You're solving the problem from her end, in a sense, right? If you think about it, the man doing the solution and that giving the woman the answer is like a solution for the woman. Right. So it's kind of both ways, really. I think just sometimes, I think at the end of the day, too, just if you know you're at fault, like sometimes you just have to say sorry. I think sometimes it's a pride thing, too. I think sometimes pride plays a big part in it. And men, you know, I think they don't show their emotions maybe as much as a woman might show their emotions. Sorry, guys. Maybe some of you do. But I know some of you men are sensitive too. So, but I think in my relationship with my husband, he's not here, but I know like sometimes when I've just like we've separated for a few minutes, gone and done a few things, we come back and talk about it, or we have a couple silly things that we do that kind of break the ice a little bit, and it kind of helps take away that like little bit of bitterness, because I think you get, or frustration, because when you're arguing, you're obviously very frustrated. You both people, because one feels they're getting attacked and the other one feels maybe they're not getting heard. So I think just sometimes admitting if you feel that even if you're not necessarily, like maybe the other person did do something to hurt you, but you know that maybe you didn't approach it in the right way, you could at least apologize for that. And I think that kind of calms the situation a little bit and like makes the other person like more receptive to hearing you at that point. It may not solve all the problems, but then it calms it, and then they feel like they can approach you again and talk to you about it.
And a small piece of advice after 18 years of marriage, that when that happened to us and he says something or do something, I feel it hurtful to me, and I go express it in a wrong way because I didn't put in my mind what Missy just said, that it's not the intention to hurt me. But when I go with the right way, and he just say, oh, I'm sorry, I really didn't mean that. My intention was da, da, da. So sometimes when you remind yourself, like I'm gonna talk about from the side that the person who got hurt, if you remind yourself that maybe a slight chance that the spouse didn't mean to hurt me, they're gonna calm you a little bit before you go and express your feeling. But if you just feel, as Abuna mentioned, that he is your enemy or she is your enemy, so you're gonna go and fight for your right, that's gonna make it bigger. Just calm yourself by reminding yourself that maybe he or she didn't mean to hurt me.
And I feel that just the first question was don't have discussion. This question
ناخذ الادفايس
لا لا please do answer كله بيرد. I didn't mean it يعني لا.
All right. How often do you do date nights alone versus date nights with kids?
How often do you do date nights alone versus date nights with kids? Alone, like without your spouse? What does that mean? What does that mean? هو في ديت بجد؟
لا بالكيدز.
بالكيدز. Oh yes, she's asking, is there like a date with kids? Right? Maybe they mean like alone date with, like I will go date with Steven, George gonna go with Gina. Maybe they meant that. So this is not a date. Yeah, how often? Yeah. So you answer, guys. You. Because they asking how often. That's our question. Like, how often should we do that?
So something that we did that I really appreciated, at least this was before we started serving, is that we
I heard that.
we had once a week we would go on a date, and it was like, and it didn't have to be like a big deal thing, but we got a babysitter and we didn't have the kids, and we got to spend time like with each other. So I loved that. We did do that, but that was before we were serving. They were little. But they could talk. Like, we didn't leave them with people before they could talk. Like,
so maybe the question, because those from the people who were here last time, so maybe those from people don't have kids yet. And they are asking how often to do it now versus after we have kids.
Oh.
Oh. Yeah, yeah. As much as you can now, yeah.
We didn't do a lot of date nights, but what we did do was once in a while, I would just take an evening off and go and do coffee on my own or go browse a bookstore. And then Magdi would take an evening off to just go do something on his own. So you were joking, but I think it was actually really, it's a really good point. Sometimes it's just time off on your own.
I would definitely have to agree with that. As much as I would enjoy seeing my spouse, I guess, on a date, for the mom, you have to find the babysitter. You have to pay them enough money that they will stay with your boys for at least 2 hours. And then they would call you 5 times. So it was really stressful. But if there was ever a time where my spouse took the kids and left the house and I was there by myself, it was heaven. It was the best thing ever.
It helps you to refresh, kind of re-energize, kind of clear your mind when you're at home with the kids and running around and doing kind of chores. So when you take time off for yourself once a week, or once every 2 weeks, it gives you energy.
Does your partner's past matter?
What'd you say? She said if it's a criminal. Yeah.
Didn't specify.
Can you read it again?
Sure.
Does your partner or does your spouse?
Does your partner's past matter?
The reason I ask this is perhaps if it was a single person and they're asking if their past, as in past relationships or past experiences or whatever. I think definitely they do matter. My own personal opinion is, if this is the case, is don't ask. And also for the other one, do not volunteer the information. But if it was asked, you have to answer, and you have to answer truthfully, without giving too much detail. Because you don't want to have stuff that will be kind of like, the enemy can use that to just make them just have some crazy thoughts or doubts or whatever later on. If that is the question.
I didn't understand that, Abuna. So you're saying one shouldn't share one's past?
I'm specifically talking about romantic experiences. If I was dating before and I was engaged before, if I've had actually past physical experiences before, I don't recommend. Some other priests, by the way, may have a different opinion. But my recommendation is do not volunteer the stuff. If the other person doesn't ask and they like who you are now and they don't care what happened in the past, great. And I'm telling the other one is like, don't ask unless you're prepared for the answer. If you really want to know, by all means ask. It's your right to ask. And if you are asked, you need to answer truthfully. Without too much detail, but you need to answer truthfully. Yeah.
Like, what about in the case, though, of... Oh, sorry. I guess my only concern would be, like, the partner's health. Like, if someone has had sexual intimacy in the past and has not been tested, or they could pass things on without knowing, and if that's not discussed, then the person wouldn't know to test before. I'm just throwing that out there as a
sure
idea.
For sure, if anybody has fallen into sin before, and like of course, other than confession, repentance stuff, they do need to go get tested. They need to wait at least 6 months, I think, and at least 6 months or something, depending, and you go to a doctor or whatever and get tested for various stuff, because if you have something, you have to volunteer and share this information, because this can be grounds for annulment.
I'm sorry, Abuna. I don't feel comfortable with telling someone, if you're not asked, do not volunteer your past. They're going to become one body. And I think this is part of what you're carrying into the marriage. So it makes me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, but what Abuna is saying about the romantic relationship, I'm not going to carry that into my marriage.
You carry it, well, I'm not sure. I think that's a state of perfection idealism that is not reality, especially if there's been physical intimacy. I think they may not know to ask. I don't know. I know we're not. It makes me feel uncomfortable that one would be going to a marriage with that.
I agree with everything that's been said. I'd like to add one more thing. If you're the person asking that, I presume that I'm only addressing someone who's not married yet. So if you're asking, be prepared to deal with the answer. But once you've received the answer and you've accepted it, do not keep bringing it up. You've heard the answer, you accept it or you don't. If you accept it, that's the end, right? Do not bring it up after that.
I don't want to stir the pot.
You're already stirring. You've already stirred.
I think that if a person is still dealing with their past experiences, you definitely need to know
if they're still dealing with it.
And if no harm will come to the other partner, like no biological harm will come to the other partner because of a past experience that they may have had. But if they've already dealt with things, then there's no need to know. But if they're still dealing with things, if they have triggers, if there's hurts, if there's wounds, I do think the past matters.
You've got to know their past and know where they're coming from when they're interacting with you. Like if they had, I don't know, any kind of traumatic experience growing up or in past relationships, it's important that you know that to give them grace for the growth that they still need to make because they're dealing with that. I think that's what Missy is saying.
Thank you. I agree.
But you said it's important to know. It's important to you to know. So you will ask that question. And Abuna said if you get asked, you have to be honest and answer truthfully. But I think if you have mistakes in the past and you confess, that's part of the confession. I don't have to tell you and have to deal with us getting into it later down the line and that get brought back up. I clean myself from that sin. So but if you asked, then I answer.
On a case-by-case basis, because it depends on the person who wants to know, doesn't want to know, or feels like they should share or not.
Yeah, I was going to say, but something like that, just throw out the example. If somebody has been sexually abused, it's not like they should share that. Their partner has a right to know that because their partner might do something that triggers that response. So I feel like there is some part, because like you had said, maybe they don't know to ask these questions. Maybe your spouse doesn't know to say, hey, have you ever been abused like this? Or is there any lines I can't cross because it's going to do something to you? So I think their past is important.
But again, that situation here also fall under I'm carrying something to our marriage. But what Bishu said, like if something I already, and Missy said that I already dealt with, I confessed, I repent, and it's in the past, I don't need to remind myself about it again by sharing it. But if I've been asked, I will be clear and come forward to it. But again, if that question That how is my partner's past matter? And I'm asking that because should I ask about their past or not? If that's the question, then that's a personal decision. If it's something matter to me, then ask about it. If the past of your partner matter to you, then ask. But if it's the opposite, like he shared with me his past, or should I share my past with my partner? Again, if I'm carrying something to the marriage, it's gonna affect us later. Or if we're gonna deal with something similar to that later, then he or she need to know about it so we can work together not to fall in this mistake again.
Hear some of their requests.
Only 2 more questions.
Okay.
Okay.
How do you solve a problem, and how long does it take to solve it?
How do you solve a problem, and how long does it take to solve it?
Next question. Wait.
Call a plumber? Is that what you said?
So I think we covered that by saying that communication, be calm while you're talking about it, and how long it takes. You all agreed about not to let it sink for a long time, just maybe a couple, minutes or hours based on the situation, and then we start to communicate about it again, either together or a third partner, third party like Abuna or some trusted other person to be between us in this situation. Okay, next.
How could you resist the urge of cheating? How could you resist the urge of cheating? Cheating.
Yeah, the urge of cheating.
Yeah, right?
So I think that I think the first thing that you need to do is to never engage the thought. If a thought comes to you, if an attraction comes to you, that you, from that point, you dismiss it, you don't play around with it. You don't imagine what it would be like or think or start comparing. You be very, very serious initially that you just don't think about it.
Run for your life.
Yeah, you flee at that point.
Yes.
Because once you get to the place where it's possible for the thing to happen, like you've already fallen because you've already accepted the idea.
I think you need to have an affair with your spouse. That you need to do. If you're going to have one, have it with your spouse. I read that once somewhere.
Abuna, do you want to add something?
I think Missy said it, but absolutely, as soon as you're aware of it, expose it. Go to your father confession on a regular basis. And with your father confession, try to find out what are the circumstances or the triggers that when you are vulnerable to this thought, what causes it to pop on your mind? Because you can't keep telling yourself, don't think this, don't think this, don't think this, but then there's something maybe that's very hurtful or very alienating or very whatever from your spouse that's causing you. I'm not saying it's ever an excuse, okay? But to find out the source, instead of just saying to yourself, don't think this, don't think this. Yani, exposing, bring it to the light. It's like cockroaches. Once you expose them to the light, God gets involved in the sacrament of confession. And then together you can work with the Father Confession about the triggers and circumstances that maybe trigger it.
Okay, next question, last question.
How to deal with my stubborn spouse?
I'm not stubborn.
Yeah, stop it. She's just threw that question.
grace. Just show them grace.
Maybe same things as we said about the alpha man. You think guys it's gonna work?
I'm stubborn. I'm very stubborn. I think one thing I'm just thinking out loud right now, but I think one thing I would try to work on is what is the cause of the stubbornness? Somebody can be quote unquote stubborn or resolute like the martyrs because they feel very convinced and they feel strong conviction about something. Somebody may be stubborn about something because of fear, because of an issue with themselves, like because of, it's a lot of stuff. Maybe I'm the one who's being stubborn. I mean, there's a lot of, it requires examination, I think.
I think when one's being stubborn, they sometimes maybe don't feel heard out completely. And I think that's when they start becoming stubborn.
And I think it's okay to pick your battles and sometimes give in. It's all right. And just let them have that. So not everything is and compromise at times. So I think it's fine. Have the little stuff and then we can talk about the big stuff.
Guys, we're done with the questions, but also the same group has requests for the other people around. So can we start just reading them? And it's not going to take time because it's just reading them.
Stop giving me parenting advice on a generation our kids being raised in a different world than they were raised in. I think it's trying to say stop giving us advice to a different generation than we are.
Stop giving us advice raising kids in a generation that you didn't raise us in.
Yeah.
That's not good for you, right? And it says, stop telling me have more children. Have more children. You're doing your part right time. No one's gonna tell you that though. Right? Not now. Not now at least, yeah.
You feel the pressure?
Stop comparing my husband to my brother-in-law. They are opposite personalities.
I wish people stop giving me a hard time about how far I live from them. That's my parents.
We live with each other.
Stop assuming that my life is easier since I'm single.
Yeah, just to clarify, guys, the first part we had single people with us sharing their questions, so that's why we're gonna see something.
Stop asking when I am going to stop being silent about things my spouse does that make me unhappy. Repeat. Okay, stop asking when I am going to stop being silent about things my spouse does that make me unhappy.
Stop asking about my kids' weight.
No one's gonna ask you that. My kids wait. Yeah.
and it goes both ways, guys. Like some parents asking, like, why your kids are so skinny, or why their kids are chubby. Yeah, it goes both ways.
Stop asking about the financial details of my husband and I.
Stop throw salt at weddings on the groom in Egypt.
Okay, Missy, can you start now your advices? Now, guys, that's going to be their part to give us advices. And they're going to read it also the same way that we did.
Can I say something?
Thank you guys for listening to us, to our concerns.
One thing that we got from this meetings that I feel like from now on, like, if I want you to stop, because all the request was stop, stop, stop. I feel like from now on, I will start using how I feel about the situation. So I honestly like that meeting because it brought up so many times that we should always express how we feel and how other people make us feel. So, and they will stop.
And they will
doing that when you tell
so
them how
can I
you
share
feel.
something to Vivo's point? That sorry.
Oh yes. So last time Gabriella, this is where I learned most of this from anyway. So Gabriella was here, and when she gave her request, Gabriella's my daughter, that she said it makes me feel pressure when you continually ask me when I'm going to get married. And so that's exactly what you're saying. And it wasn't received in the same way as the stop doing this, stop doing that. Yep.
Are we getting back?
I'm sorry. I need my glasses.
Oh, sorry.
That's good.
What? Yeah, aren't you going to have more children? Your brother.
You can say, yeah, you can say it all you want. No, she's not.
Tell your spouse what you need, even if you think she should know it already.
Nice.
That's a big one. Have one-on-one time. Daily, ask what were some of the highlights of your day. Weekly, go on dates if possible by yourselves and for at least an hour and spend at least $3. Yearly, go on a vacation at least 1 hour away. I think it should say with kids or without.
It didn't specify. No, without. Those are
advice.
Ideas. To do it weekly or monthly or yearly. Yeah, I think that's what it said.
Are you ready for me?
Go ahead.
Be the best Christian person you can be. It will help stand and endure when your spouse is being weak. And it will help be more selfless, more considerate, and more loving. And all are also awesome for your marriage.
Treat your spouse the way you treat your friends and colleague. Speak to your spouse the way you speak to your boss and ask yourself, would I say that to someone else before you open your mouth?
Be patient with your wife, husband, and kids.
Always look for an excuse to forgive and let go. Be first to say I'm sorry even if you think or know you are right.
That's amazing because you said that earlier. Oh, you wrote it.
This says love equals give. John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave.
So,
like give what? Gifts?
Whatever your maybe spouse needs, like expose your love by like explain your.
It could mean any time.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, give one of the gifts.
It could be just simple as time.
Give up.
No, that's the only thing you can do.
So this is a good one. Marriage is not always happy days. In darker days, be patient, stay calm, forgive, don't rush to talking, wait, and it will be better after that. Most of the time. No, I added most of the time.
So, mine is the opposite. Don't listen too much to advice from old people.
Which is weird that one of this group wrote that. Because we're listening to your advice. That's weird.
Forget everything they said tonight.
From day one, build unshaken trust by being trustful all, that's capital, all the time, even when telling the truth, even if when telling the truth will cause you some headaches, it is worthwhile. Build trust.
Thank you. Recognize that your spouse is not there to fulfill your desires or needs. You both need to support one another or each other.
Remember that you are able to dictate the mood of the house. It is in your hands. And the other one says, treat your marriage relationship like a live being. It needs nourishment, education, intentional attention, going to the doctor when sick, etc.
Mine said, let stuff go.
Smile.
No, the advice is us to smile, not to ask your spouse to smile when they are angry. Stop doing that.
I was she's angry and I'm like I was like, I'm gonna get more angry. Yeah.
You're not listening.
Most people, when they get married, they let it go and stop taking care of themselves. Take care of yourself, your health, your hygiene, and your partner will really appreciate it.
Don't finish your spouse's sentence. Don't interrupt.
Be yourself from the beginning.
Oh, I like that one. Yeah. I feel like that needs to be said to single people.
I did not write this one.
I didn't just finish your sentence.
This is much better. Be kind with your words. A simple thank you or a compliment can go a long way.
Pray as a family.
Thank you. So if something your spouse does or says bothers you, take some time to find out why he or she is doing or saying this.
Mine is like junk. JFK, don't ask what your spouse can do for you, rather ask what you can do for your spouse. Isn't that JFK?
Talk less and listen more.
Okay. Is that it? Or are there more? No, there are more. Oh, there's more. Okay.
Understand they are humans and humans are not perfect.
Pray for your spouse more often.
great marriage is a relationship between two excellent forgivers.
Kids are a blessing. Life will change after having kids.
It is one I never thought of. This is very important, guys. Pull more weeds.
Oh, weeds.
Like from the yard?
Don't know why.
From your relationship.
From the relationship.
I don't know. That's how it got. From the church. Abuna needs it from the church.
Try to do a lot of fun activities as a family. مفيش أكتر من activities.
That's really fun.
Use it as a punch bag.
The last words, don't argue with your wife too much.
Thank you. I love that. I will have these two barcodes for you guys. After the meeting, you are welcome to scan them, and you can still have chance to submit more questions or more advices for later. Okay. So I'm gonna leave them here. After we finish, you feel free to scan them. Anything that you wanna wrap the meeting with? The mic.
Let's pray. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. Dear Heavenly Father, God, thank you so much, Lord, for creating marriage. Thank you, Lord, for, in order to relate to us how you feel about us, you chose the relationship of the bridegroom and the bride. Help us, Lord, to appreciate how lovely this relationship is, Lord, and that its purpose is for our sanctification. Help us, Lord, to always examine ourselves and see where I am coming short, as opposed to focus on where my spouse is coming short. When I offer more, things will get better. Lord, bless the couples that are here, those that have been married for a long time, those who are newlyweds and anywhere in between, and those who are single. Protect the family, O Lord, this nation all over the world. And the church, we ask you to please hear us through the intercessions of Mary and all your saints and martyrs who please you from the beginning, the mighty power of your life-giving cross, and the blessed days of the glorious resurrection, holy 50 days. Please, O Lord, make us worthy to pray thankfully. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. Christ Jesus our Lord, for thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. And now the love of God, the Father, grace is only begotten Son, our Lord, God, and Savior, Jesus Christ, the communion and the gift of the Holy Spirit be with you all. Go in peace. The peace of the Lord be with you. Do we have instructions?
Guys, I read something online a couple days ago, and I wanted to share. It's something funny. It said the right husband is not the one who's gonna fight the dragon for me. Is the one who's gonna still deal with me when I am the dragon. So something to put in your mind to understand how to help your spouse, and it goes both ways when he or she is the dragon. Thank you so much for coming.